The tooth under the pillow. Anne was feeling rather excited. One of her first teeth had come out that morning, and Mother had said something surprising. "We'll put it under your pillow tonight, Anne," she said. "Why?" asked Anne. "Because the fairies like the little first teeth of children," said Mother. "Maybe one will come tonight and take your tooth, and perhaps leave you a little silver sixpence for it." That seemed very surprising to Anne. She thought about it all day long, and she made up her mind that she would keep awake that night so that she might see the fairy if one came. Well, at night, Anne put the tiny white tooth under her pillow, and then she waited and waited for the fairy to come. But no fairy came. "I shall soon be asleep," thought Anne, yawning. "I wish I could think of some idea that would wake me up as soon as the fairy took the tooth." She did think of an idea. She got out of bed and went to Mother's workbox. She took out a reel of white cotton and broke off a piece of the thread. She tied it carefully around the little tooth and put it back under her pillow. And she tied the other end of the cotton to her own little finger. "Now," thought Anne, "if the fairy comes and takes the tooth, the thread will pull at my finger and I shall wake up." She fell asleep. She dreamt of all kinds of things, and then suddenly she felt something tugging on her little finger. She woke up at once and remembered the tooth under the pillow. The fairy must be there, fetching it. The moonlight streamed into the room, and Anne could quite well see everything. By her bed stood a tiny creature, hardly bigger than Anne's biggest doll. She had a mop of bright, shiny hair, little pointed ears that stuck up through it, and a pair of silvery wings that grew out from the back of her. There wasn't any doubt at all that it was a fairy. Anne put out her hand and caught hold of her. She could hold her as easily as a doll. The fairy gave a squeal of surprise and began to wriggle hard, but Anne wouldn't let her go. She lifted her up onto the bed and took a good look at her. "What a dear little thing you are," she said. "I did so want to see you. Have you come for my tooth?" "Yes," said the fairy, "but it was on a bit of cotton. Why did you tie it to your finger?" "Because I wanted to wake up when you came and have a look at you," said Anne. "Why did you want my little tooth?" "Well, it's made of bone," said the fairy, "which is nice to carve. I take children's little teeth to Mr. Snoodle, and he carves them into tiny toys for fairy children." "Oh, how lovely," said Anne. "What tiny toys they must be. I would so like to see them." "You can't," said the fairy. "Mr. Snoodle never lets any but fairy children have them." "Well, after all, it's my tooth," Anne said. "I don't think I shall let you go until you promise to bring me back the toy that my little tooth is carved into." "Oh, do let me go," begged the tiny creature in alarm. "I have to be back home before dawn. Everyone will be worried if I don't get back before then." "Well, will you promise to bring me the toy that my tooth makes?" asked Anne. "You needn't leave me the sixpence. I don't want that. I'd rather have my tooth back again and see what Mr. Snoodle has made of it." "I can't promise that," said the fairy, beginning to wriggle again. "Don't be unkind, little girl. Let me go. Mr. Snoodle badly needs a few teeth just now. He hasn't had any for a long time." "Well, listen," said Anne. "I have 2 more teeth that are loose. I promise that you shall have them for Mr. Snoodle when they come out. I'll put them under my pillow. Now, will you say I can have this tooth when it's made into a toy?" "Oh, well, if you really do promise to let me have 2 more teeth soon, I'll see what I can do about it," said the fairy. "Now please let me go." Anne let her go. The tiny thing spread her wings and fluttered down from the bed. She carried the little tooth with her on its thread. She flew out of the top window into the moonlight and was gone. Anne felt very excited the next morning. She told her mother all about the fairy. Mother laughed and shook her head. "You dreamt it, darling," she said. "Well, Mother, there's no sixpence under my pillow this morning," said Anne, "so I'm sure I did catch the fairy and give her my tooth. Oh, won't it be fun if she comes back again with a tiny toy?" Anne looked under her pillow every morning to see if a little ivory toy was there, but it wasn't. Then one evening, another of her front teeth came out. "I'll put it under my pillow, and maybe the fairy will come back again," thought Anne. "I'll tie it to my finger by a thread again. Then I shall wake." But she didn't wake. The fairy came, but this time she had a small pair of scissors with her, and she snipped the thread so that she could take the tooth without waking Anne. When the little girl found that her tooth was gone and that she still had a piece of cotton tied around her finger, she guessed what had happened. She hunted carefully under the pillow and in the bed, and she found the tiniest little toy imaginable. You would love it. It was a very, very small engine carved out of her old tooth, so small that it could hardly be seen. It had a tiny funnel. It even had 2 very, very tiny lamps in front, carved out of it. "Oh, it's simply beautiful!" cried Anne. "Oh, I'll be afraid of losing it. Mother, Mother, look! What shall I do with this beautiful little fairy toy? I mustn't lose it. It's the most precious thing I have." "We will put it on your bracelet," said Mother. "You shall wear it as a lucky charm. I'll do it for you now. What a lovely little thing it is." So Anne wears her engine tooth on her bracelet, and how all the children love to see it. Isn't she lucky? She says I'm to tell you that it's a really good idea to tie a bit of cotton to a tooth under the pillow, just in case you catch a fairy that way, as she did. It's worth trying, isn't it?